Good afternoon and welcome everyone in this third webinar, Why Time is a New Currency of Manufacturing. And I would like to start with a simple observation. Most manufacturing companies have become very good at optimizing resources, machines, labor, utilization, and the efficiency. Yet, despite all that effort, many companies still struggle with long lead times, firefighting, unpredictable delivery dates, hence the need for constant replanning. So I would like to challenge one assumption today. What if time and not efficiency is the most important competitive resource in manufacturing? And that's what we'll explore together today. So if you're operating in a high mix environment, these symptoms probably feel familiar. Priorities change, engineering changes happen, materials arrive late, hence why the customer accelerates the orders and the production schedules get revised. So before you know it, you spend your day coordinating instead of producing. And the result is a factory that feels busy all the time. But the orders are moving slower than expected. So the main question is why? So I would like to ask everyone a question which is visible in the poll. So if you think about a typical order in your company, how much of its total lead time do you think is actual value added work? Take a guess. I see there are already some polls coming in. Already a few good answers too. All right. If we look at the results, I see that more than 50% thinks 15% or more. Luckily, no one in the room is at 50%. Now, let's have a look. The real result is 5%. But in your case, your answers, it perfectly makes sense. Because when we think about lead time, we naturally think about the work. But the reality is often very different. So let's have a dive. In many manufacturing environments, only a tiny fraction of the total lead time is the actual work. The vast majority is waiting for materials, decisions, capacity, priorities, clear information. So the product spends most of its life doing absolutely nothing. And that's a whole different problem than your machine efficiency. And for decades, manufacturing has been focused on utilization. Let's keep our people busy, keep the machine busy. But the problem is the local efficiency often creates a global delay. Departments optimize themselves, but meanwhile, we see growing queues between departments. The lead time increases, the complexity increases, hence the coordination effort only increases too. So we need to become more efficient locally while becoming slower globally. So lead time is a more important metric than utilization. But still, most of the factories are still trapped in the efficiency trap. They still look at the machine utilization, the labor efficiency, the departmental output. But that's not what customers are buying from you. They buy complete orders. They don't buy machine utilization. So your question should not be how busy is the machine. It should be how fast are our products moving. And that's the main difference between resource watching and product watching. Now, one of these reasons this problem persists is actually because of traditional accounting. So I don't hope there are any CFOs in the room for now, but within traditional accounting, the waiting time is simply not visible. We measure the labor, we measure the machine hours, the material cost, but the cost of waiting, coordination, replanning, and expediting is all hidden within traditional accounting. So the real cost of long lead times is simply not visible within the management reporting, but it's the reality and the complexity we're dealing day to day with. And no, it's not only a problem of operations. It's a general problem, it's a company problem because the lead time affects the working capital, the inventory, the flexibility, your customer satisfaction, and your capacity for growth being a company. So it's one of the most important strategic variables, yet it's often treated as an operational KPI. But luckily, we're here for solutions. And the first one is MCT, or Manufacturing Critical Path Time. It gives you a different view. Instead of the measuring activity, we measure the elapsed time. So the question becomes, how long does it take for value, customer value, to flow through the system? That's simple. MCT makes the waiting visible. It shows a wide space between the activities, and once you can see the waiting time, you can start reducing it. And that's why many companies discover their biggest improvements are not inside processes, but between processes. So before we move to the story of CGK, this is one of the most important slides. Most organizations try to manage the speed directly, but speed is not an outcome. You don't manage the speed, but you do manage the conditions that enable or create speed. And these conditions include limiting the WIP, creating a team ownership, prioritizing the flow, making the capacity visible, and providing daily guidance. And when these conditions exist, the lead times naturally shrink. So let's have a look at the story of CGK, how it really looked like in practice. Tel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello. So my name is Tel. I'm the CEO of CGK Group and also one of the three owners of CGK Group. And I will lead you through our story on how we decided to take QRM as part of our growth strategy. How did we approach it and which results we had. But first, let's start with our dream, which is the reason why we exist as CGK Group. So we are committed to the safety, health, and protection of the people and the infrastructure. We do that as a family-rooted company, with, of course, some ambition. So all the products we do are in this aspect. We have 3 business units. I will shortly explain them so you know what kind of production we have, which kind of company we are. So chemical process solutions, maritime and infra, and Lodax. These are the products and solutions we make for the chemical process solutions. So everything which has to do with working with chemicals. So we make the storage vessels, we do piping in plastic, stainless steel. So we install them ourselves with our own people. Dosing units, to dose the chemicals, to store them. We do skids. We also do the insulation and the heating of the piping we do and the vessels we make. Everything to have a customer without worrying him how he needs to handle chemicals. Yeah. Maritime and infra construction, second one, actually started from the first one. We needed these kind of platforms on FRP structures, so fiber reinforced plastics. And then we started to make bridges with it. And we added some, because it's a lot used close to water, to ports. So we added some water control and port equipment. As you see, we work with a lot of different materials. So we have stainless steel, steel, and then all kind of plastics. So we try to use the materials who are the best. We don't push for plastics or push for stainless steel because we only do that. We are able to work with all of them. And the last one is also in recycled plastics. It's a more different business unit. It's to mobilize, to stabilize mobile vehicles, as you see. So this is festival business, and then all kind of erection works in building industry. This is a product we export all over the world. Main business is in Europe, but we are producing these kind of solutions. Next to that, we don't only produce. So we start with analyzing the problem. We do co-engineering. For example, a company who knows how to make beer. We know how to handle chemicals, to work with chemicals, to transport them in the company. We go with co-engineering to the best solution. That we produce it. We have two sites of production, one in Gullegem, close to Kortrijk, and then one in Antwerp. And we do the maintenance. Rental business, for example, we do that as well. So I think we are a nice example of a company who has a lot of complexity. We do engineer to order, but we also do Lodex products, which is more series and smaller series. Almost everything is high volume. A high mix, low volume. So that's why we thought about the QRM, quick response manufacturing methodology, to implement it in CGK Group. So why? First of all, maybe some history. My father started the company in 1996. And my co-founder, Geert de Nette, started his company in the same year. They didn't know each other. In 2000, they started to work together with the company K Construct, which is K in Flemish, it's kunststof. So they combined the knowledge of plastics and the chemical law, which is in Flanders in the 1990s written. They combined it, started to make plastic constructions. And then in 2004, they thought, okay, we know each other well. We have each our own company. I want together. Let's make one company of it. So, and it was easy, just the three first letters of these companies. CGK Group was born. We thought, I wasn't there yet. I was still studying at that time. But they added group because they thought, let's think big. We were at that time in 2009 when I started with 16 people. So small company. Nowadays, we work with 130 people. We did some acquisitions, mainly for vertical integration. So we did our own stainless steel piping in 2010. 2012 was the installation activity. Everything to make sure that we have everything in control for our customers. So we don't need subcontractors to do the job. And so on. We doubled the sites in 2023, and then we started in 2024 with the site in Antwerp. And it was around, I think, 2018. We were with 60 people then. We started to feel some silos, bureaucratic issues between, but this is not my responsibility. This is, I'm just designing, and the sales, the typical stress you have in a lot of companies between sales and operations, HR, and so on. And as we are a family-owned company, the culture is extremely important. And we felt that if we double, for example, like we are now with a bit more than 120, that we could not keep this culture. So we needed to organize ourselves differently. So I started to look which are the possibilities, and these are the kinds of things. Of course, it's black and white here, but cost savings are the priority. For example, management says human resources, staff costs are too high, and so on. These classic discussions, which is not our culture. We don't like it. It was coming up, of course, with 60 people, and the 3 owners of the company are working in the company, so we didn't have too much to bother about this. But we started to feel it, and so we needed to think ahead. Otherwise, we would have these kind of problems. We made our strategy in 2019. You see the visualization of the strategy was for 5 years. So now we started a new one. You have the customer in central. The words are mostly in Dutch, but as you see here, the customer, and this is the customer journey. And the farther you go away from the customer, the more you have projects. These are all projects. The the more distance it is from the customer. So one of it is QRM. We also had the new building, as I explained, and so on. All this is more or less realized now. But this was important to make it visible to all of our people. Everyone, also the welders on the floor, had to know how we what is our goal and how we why is the strategy important. These pictures, for example, this is Koen, this is Mathieu, these are our own people, so they recognize themselves in the strategy. So we moved from a functional hierarchical organizational structure to a team structure. I think we just did it at the right timing. 60 people was still manageable. Yes, we had one office, for example, with let's see, I think it was 4 or 5 designers. We had a sales team, we had a project office. So they were sitting on different places. So literally with walls in between. And then if sales sold something, they go to the project office and give some orders. They start to working on it. Then it goes to design. So this, of course, again, stated black and white. And then you get typical discussions, as I explained before. And QRM, what it does is actually totally different. If my slide goes, yeah. We worked with FTMS. I won't go too much in detail, but it stands for Focused Target Market Segments. So we made teams, not functional, but cross-trained teams, which could make typical solutions for our customers all of themselves. So in one team, you have a sales, a project responsible, a designer, administration, work preparation, everything you need to do the job for the customer. And of course, they have a specialization. For example, here, chemical process, CPS, turnkey. These are typical projects with long lead times. So they need to go in detail. They need to go a lot to the customer. These projects typically have a lead time between 6 months and 1 year. The make-to-order team is a team who produces the solutions, but they do not install them at the customer site. So there, the lead times are shorter. They have a different focus. Also, the customer expects different lead times. So they are in control of their own production teams. So the turnkey team, for example, they also have their own floor shop and their own teams mounting the solutions. Then we have installations. They only work outside of the customer. So they don't have a shop floor just for some prefab works, but most of the time they work on the site of the customers all over the country, also in the north of France and in the Netherlands. So they have a different focus, different lead time, because there we have also service teams. So it could be that this afternoon a customer calls and tomorrow we are at site to solve the problem. So you see it's a different way of working. Before, it was all project responsibles who are coping of all these kind of projects, which is mixing, because I have a customer who calls and I need to solve it tomorrow, and I have an engineering order which takes more than a year. So it's different mindset. And someone who works outside of the customer in turnkey projects is a different person than someone who is solving a problem for a leakage of chemicals, for example. And then we have two others. I won't go into detail, but they have also a shorter lead time. So lead time was one of the differentiators to make the teams. You can do it on many ways. If you dive into QRM, you can do it also geographically. You can, in all kind of ways, you can make teams. But the goal is that they are self-sufficient, and then I call it always mini companies in the bigger. So the goal, company-wide strategy, not only on the shop floor, which because I see a lot of examples who start from a shop floor ID and then they try to convince management and so on, which is not always easy because then you need to make, as Steen explained already, you need to start to think in time instead of costs. So if they don't track the time, it's difficult to measure it. Functional organization structure to a team structure that I explained. So focus on the lost time between the steps. Steen showed you the MCT map. So there we focus not on the production time, as the 5% we really work on the project, but on the time between those different steps. And that's why a team structure where they have all the capabilities in one team helps a lot. They can really easy go through that process without having to leave the office to another, because one of the things they measured in QRM is the further we are physically sitting from each other, the longer it takes to communicate, and it's really exponential. So our teams are sitting in one space, one open space together. So they hear each other calling with the customer. They can easily cooperate on top. Lost time, yeah, that's explained. So we didn't put extra stress on the 5%, which is the production time, because there, yeah, maybe you can squeeze 1% more and then you have 4%, but the other 95% you didn't touch. So also easy to explain to our people who were needed to change how they worked. But if you explain, we are not going to make you work harder, but smarter and a more flow. Everything is about the flow, not about working faster in that 5%, which is the easy understand this kind of explanation. Okay, so we had the idea. It wasn't the strategy, and then we needed to start. We needed to change how we worked. So we made a roadmap. We started with a pilot team, which was the IBC team. You see, it was in the 2020. So our perfect timing, it was Corona. We had to work from home, but of course we are luckily, we are a production company, so we could make work. They could still come to the office, and we didn't have any problems afterwards, so it was okay. But it was a little bit in a gray space, let's say. But we were at site. You cannot produce these kind of solutions from home. After the pilot team, we tweaked some things with the meetings and how we could start. And then, yeah, you have to tell to all of your people. We started, that's an important thing to note. We started in the office, not in the shop floor. Because we saw that the most white space, lost space between every step. So in the lead time, maybe you could think of yourself in your company, but there is a lot of time that a project sits between the first question of the customer to quoting, to order, engineering, designing, work preparation, which is all done in the office. And then when it goes to the shop floor, especially in an hour, then it goes quite easily and there is not a lot of waiting time in between, which is also naturally because these vessels are really big. We don't have the space to let 100 vessels stay there and work 1 hour on each vessel. We have to make it flow because otherwise we are in lack of space. So we started in the office and we had to talk to all the different people, employees, to say, okay, we think you're best fitting in this team. So imagine you are a project responsible and you're used to do projects of turnkey, then you have big to order, then you have piping projects. You had all these difference, and all of a sudden we come to tell you, we think you best fitted in the piping business, installations. So you don't have any projects anymore about storage of chemicals, only piping. So it's more narrow, but you go in a team and you can decide in the team how you work. So we had, I think we did it in 1 week because they know, okay, different team, different office, they had to move. Of course, all in one building, but different office spaces. There was one person at that time, we were with 60, who didn't solve it. So we had to say goodbye to that person. If you change, not everyone is happy to follow. There you have the typical change things. Let's say you have the early adopters, then you have the followers, the critical ones, and so on. We all had these kind of struggles. But we worked with ambassadors. So in each team, there was someone where we knew in beforehand this is more an early adopter type of person. So they were enthusiastic about the QRM, and then they spread it in their own team. So we don't have to do that as management all ourselves, and they hear it from one of their own team. And so on. So then we moved in June between two Corona golven, I don't know the word in English, waves. And so on. Then something which is important in QRM is, okay, then you have the teams, they are self-sufficient, so they are really free in how they serve the customers from start to end. But you still have processes that needs to be aligned. You don't want one designer in one team working with AutoCAD and the other one with SolidWorks, for example. So that you still have process owners who go over the teams to make these kind of regulations. Then you have cross-training, because in a QRM philosophy, you're not one function. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4 roles. Meaning that, for example, a project responsible, when it's busy in the drawing part of the project, they start to draw themselves, to adapt little things, so that everything goes flowing. Flowing is really important to reduce the lead time. And this is the organigram we have today. So the management support team, as you see, is below, because our goal is and our task is to make these teams. Here you see the office teams, and there you have the floor shops teams. Our job is that they can do their job for the customer. Next to that, the QRM philosophy team work is also kind of culture. Luckily, because we were still small at 60, we had that culture, so we could keep it. But we didn't have the values really on paper. We felt them, but with growing, we saw that different people from different company cultures came in. So we needed to put it on paper, to explain it, also to use it when we are hiring people to see if there is a fit or not. So we went on 1 day expedition, let's say, and we started to draw. We did a questionnaire to all of our people, and with that info, we started to draw and to make our values. I don't want to stress, and this is still in Dutch, but we have 5 values, as you see, and the orange and blue is the extremes of these values. If someone is interested, I can explain one-on-one. Okay, so now we had the idea in our strategy. We thought about the implementation. We started to moving in the teams to have ambassadors, to have the team meetings in the QRM. But of course, we also needed software to support this way of working. Um, so this is, of course, also was part of our strategy. Here you see the digital part. Culture was also one of them. So digitally, okay, what do we need to support the way of working? One of the things is the single source of truth. We wanted to have data inputted once and then to be able to use it in many different applications. So when I started at CGK in 2009, we were still in the era of one ERP adding add-ons, and everything could be done of the ERP with one database, which was a nice idea, but a lot of us experienced that an ERP system. We are working with SAP, small version. Um, it's rigid. It's really good in bookkeeping and also in material resource planning, but it's not good in warehouse management system. It's not good in MES, manufacturing execution system. It's not adaptable. So we needed to start off of a wide range of applications talking to each other. And these are the applications we use. We have, for example, Efficient, which is an HR tool in connection with or payroll administration or payroll provider, because I will explain later on what it does, and all these kind of applications. So what we needed was we wanted to have it low code, so we could adapt it ourselves, because next to CEO, I'm also responsible for IT. And so I wanted to be able to adapt it myself, and I'm not able to program. And nowadays, that was in 2019, I think. Nowadays, we don't have to code anymore. With the vibe coding tool will do it for us. Of course, we still need to understand it. Needed to be cloud-based. So imagine this is in 2018, 19 that we thought of this. No, it's already more common, I hope. It needed to be a proven software platform because this treats manufacturing as we do. So I mix low volume. There is not a lot of software solutions for that. And we saw that a lot of software players, a lot, I think it were 3 or 4 players, they had still at that time, no, they changed, but they worked in Visual Basic and Access database, really small applications, not ready to scale. No, they had to change. They moved to HTML5 and another code, but still they make their own platform. We wanted to use a bigger platform with low code. So and 24Flow, well, of course we chose 24Flow. I will explain later on. And they work on the Salesforce platform. Makes sense. It's a really huge platform. They invest a lot in it, and 24Flow, and we as a customer can make use of all these investments. So we also use Salesforce as not at that time, but no, we do as a CRM platform, which is it's most known for. But actually, Salesforce started as a low-code object platform. It needed to be scalable, which is easily done with cloud. And and pasted on it the layout and screens based on the user, which is extremely important for us because we want, you'll see later on, an operator, they just need the information they need with their view. And of course, an operations manager or a project responsible or a sales, they need other information from the same database. And our former tool, the SAP add-on, we could use rights so that the operator was not able to change the stuff he did not to change, but it was all grayed out. So imagine one big screen with a lot of data, which was not useful for them. Now with Salesforce and 24 we can adapt it ourselves. And also, I'm not doing that myself. The responsible of this team. Also, we can go to each team a different layout, for example, would be possible. And that's responsible can change it himself. He knows where each button he wants it to be. So we don't need any third party suppliers to understand why we want it and so on. So I explained already, too rigid and hard to adapt, third party, and not user friendly on the shop floor. So okay, we thought, okay, we need a low-code cloud platform, but next to that, you also need a good partner to implement that solution. And there is where we find 24 Flow. At that time, still Scale Factory. They had expertise in QRM, so that was easy to understand, to explain what we wanted. We didn't have to explain what QRM was, and they were focused on the make-to-order industry at that time. And they worked with Salesforce, a proven platform. So that was a choice. I won't go too much into detail to the software itself, but long time ago, we worked with an Excel, as many people did or still do. And we did planning before QRM on a personal basis. As you see here, Jonathan, on Monday, he will work on this project. On Tuesday, he'll work on this project. So planning per day, per person. A lot of planning with 60 people, let's say in the workshop at that time, 20 people, still doable. But of course, planning and replanning and so on, meetings about planning, capacity meetings, sales who had a lot of questions about delivery times, what could they promise to the customer, all these kind of classic discussions. And with QRM, you can skip it because they have their own view in Salesforce and 24 Flow on the planning. They see the capacity. They can put in their own projects. For example, if they are still in quotes phase and they discuss with the customer, okay, what is possible, they can inject a project and see what it gives on the capacity, and then they can see themselves what they can promise to the customer. Each team, let's say, step has their own order pool, and they see on which projects they can work with which delivery time. This is high level capacity planning, so we don't plan anymore on personal level, and we don't plan on daily basis. We only plan on weeks, and it's the teams who are producing, also the drawers, the designers, they make their own week planning. So we are not bothered with that anymore, and they know better than us. For example, in the shop floor, if we start with this vessel, it will take that much place. This machine will be occupied, so we better start with another project next to that. On the floor, they have all the information now, so they can decide themselves better than someone in the office who has not this. Now, one team, for example, this is the logistics team. They see which orders or let's say operations who are coming, expected. These are in buffer. They can start with because they are fulfilled. Meaning, for example, all the parts are there to pick in the warehouse. These are not yet ready, and then they can go to production. They see how many in process. For example, with lead time reducing, you don't want here in process 10 or 20 operations at one time. You want to work on one each time. So, and each team has its own cockpit. Of course, they can put in their own timing. They start to work on one project from that time to that time. So we have the post calculation of each project. We know who worked on what operation. All these hours are also used to send to our payroll administration. So that goes automatically. And then to SAP, we don't push any personal level info, but we push the total worked hours on a project so we can do our post calculation, because that we combine with the data of all the costs of the goods. Yeah, product passport traceability, because of all these kind of logging, is now easy. If we have a problem with a vessel or something or an installation, we get going back and we see who worked on it and which products, materials we used, and so on. So the effects, real-time info available at the teams. I did not show you now, but we also have the possibility of showing them manuals at each operation. We have connection with 24 files to our SharePoint files, so they see the files directly linked to that operation or that project. So the info where it's needed to make their own decisions, because that's the goal. We don't want to a responsible and hierarchy that they need to decide what they know or not. So rescheduling is a thing of the past. They only see the production orders or the operations when they are when everything is there. So they don't start when we are all prepared. Let's say. Low level planning. Also, something we had a lot is the former detailed planning was we didn't take into consideration the holidays the people needed to take. Also, the holidays they still needed to plan, and all of a sudden you miss 20% of your capacity because you didn't count that in. Now, when they use the efficient app, so they say, okay, I asked for holidays, it automatically goes from our capacity. Less negotiations about planning and capacity because it's there. You can see it. Everyone can log in Salesforce and see what is the capacity. Checklists. So at each operation step, before, in between, that's something you need to decide yourself. You can do quality checks and all kind of safety checks. And they cannot continue, if you want it to work like that, you cannot continue to the next step. For example, for us, it's extremely important that everything we deliver is watertight, chemical tight. So you cannot go on with the next step if you did not the leakage tests. Because as you know, with paper, you can fill in whatever you want and you move on. But if you cannot register your hours, which is finally your wage at the end of the month, so you need to do these checks before you can go. API server integration, so we can use this data because we use a Salesforce platform. 24 files did not have to develop that themselves. It's out of the box there in Salesforce. So we can easily use it. Low code, we can adapt our layouts and flows ourselves to a certain level, of course. It's really extreme difficult that we go to. And data, you can use the reporting tool in Salesforce itself, which is basic, but is good to easily click through all these kind of operations and information. But of course, you also can redo it, combine it with other data from SharePoint, SAP, and so on, and Power BI to make other analysis. Of course, we're never done. We have the roadmap here, and one of the things is the time tracking at the customer sites. So then it's mobile. Again, an advantage. Salesforce has already a mobile app, so it's ready to use. So we can adapt the screens, but they don't have to develop it themselves. They can work on this platform. And then we can register, for example, if the subcontractor works because they don't have the application. Customer can sign material registration on site. Yeah, we do projects. Not everything is right from the first time. If we need some extra piping, some elbows, something changed on site, nowadays they call to their project responsible. is there still this or this material available? Can I have it tomorrow? With this tool, the goal is that they can see what we have on stock and they can make the reservation and they get the confirmation, okay, it's ready, you can pick it up. Or we deliver it on site. And then finally, we want the customer portal because then we have all this data. And some of these data is interesting for the customer. They can see which step their order is. And also the as build files, assets traceability. We want to do service on it. So if an installation has a leakage or a pump is broken or whatever, we log it on the assets. So we have some history, as you have, for example, for a car. And to end with some results and still challenges as well, of course. I think one important thing to stress is start from the strategy. Why are we doing this? So time-based thinking instead of cost thinking, team-based thinking instead of functional. These are quite essential. If you don't fully support this from your management team and in the strategy, I think it's difficult. There are examples I know in Belgium as well, who are one division who is working in QRM. It works, but then you have really to define that well because it's a totally different culture than a hierarchical company. Training. Ambassadors, they need to understand why. It's especially, for example, for the elder workers who are really raised and used to work in a hierarchical company. They in the beginning they said to me, "Tell you're naive. You're really thinking that without a leader, the team will work itself, and now we can plan our holidays, and we only need to decide in our team. Okay, then you take holiday, and no one is deciding for us if it's okay or not." So they told us you're naive. It will not work. So you need to convince these kind of people as well, and that takes some time. But of course, now if I would say we go back to the old days, of course they don't want to. And then for the software part, I think for every software or implementation of software, you need to provide sufficient internal resources. Most of the time, the partner you work with who will do the implementation, they have the time, they have the resources. But if you don't have it internally, then you're your own bottleneck. So it was an important one that we had some people who are trained in how to work with the Salesforce and to understand. Think big, implement in small steps. So we had a bigger dream in the strategy, and then we started small steps. And of course, really important is an IT partner who understands your strategy, so that they do the right things. You don't have to explain each time again. No, this is not what we want. That's one. Some challenges. Maybe I repeat here, but so management must endorse the QRM strategy goal. So they need to believe in it. For us, it's an advantage. I was the one who started with the ID, and I am able to decide. So that's a good thing. Of course, I'm not alone in the company. I have two other shareholders, and I have a management team. So they needed to go in. But I think this is a typical example here of where it needs to go from top till down. It's difficult to push it from below and to go to the management to convince them that it works. Of course, you can pitch the ID, but they need to go with it. It's not the holy grail, for sure not. It has challenges. We need more software licenses, for example, because we don't work anymore with functions. So a designer is now also doing projects. Some of them are also doing sales. So they need all these kind of applications to work with. So they are cross-trained, meaning that they use these applications less, but they all use them. In 8 hours, they use more applications. You have a lot of trainings cross because these kind of cross training, you need to know how to work sales in your team. but you can also do projects as well. Must fit with the type of business you have. I think a car manufacturing production is totally different and is not suited to use the QRM, I guess. There is more the lean philosophy, for example. So it's for sure not the holy grail. We bring customers and suppliers along in our story to explain them how we. So this is the end of my presentation. This is summary. I think most things I mentioned already. Some interesting things is as we build very large installations, our footprint, so the space we have is limited. And the faster your lead time is, the more throughput you have, so the higher revenue on the same space. We preserve the family atmosphere, also with a team of 130. We have more focus on the execution of the strategy because the teams basically run themselves. Of course, I said it's not a holy grail. We still need to follow these teams and to steer, but not that much anymore in detail. So we don't need micromanagement. People really like to work in this kind of culture and way of working, meaning that it's easier to hire employees because we have a clear differentiation of how other companies work. And yeah, that's it. In West Flemish, het is nog niet gedaan. It's never done. It's never truly finished. I think we still are at the beginning of the possibilities. So I hope it was interesting. And if you have some questions now or afterwards, feel free.
Dale, many thanks. I would lie if it's the first time that I hear this story, but every time there are a few details that I still grasp. So many thanks for your inspiring story. And from my end, how I look at it, it's you showed us what changed inside CGK. But what I found the most interesting is definitely not the IT solution you've chosen, but the realization that came before. It's you clearly realized you were growing, and most of the companies grasp to planning. Let's plan more because we need to be able to deal with the complexity and all the exceptions. But all these exceptions require more coordination. So in the end, whenever you need to plan, it didn't reflect the reality anymore, and that's a planning paradox that a lot of companies fall for. You actually took QRM seriously. You didn't saw it as a pilot, but you made it a strategic decision that you communicated across company. And the second one, it's indeed very typical. A lot of people focus immediately on production. But for me, one of those highlights is also you started at engineering. And indeed, given our engineering to order expertise, we see the biggest delays are actually most of the times created before the production even starts. So by putting that one metric at the center, it's all about time and not utilization. You really had a strategic KPI and not an operational one, lead time. So what did change at the company? Because when people hear lead time, as Dale said, they're most of the time afraid we will need to work faster, we will end up in a more hectic organization. But we really heard now that the reality is the opposite. Centralized planning became a team autonomy. Firefighting became a structured execution. The visibility gaps disappeared. Think about the capacity within the holidays, because everybody sees now the same information. And the uncontrolled WIP became the controlled release. So, very important to emphasize, I mentioned zero technology outcomes. We're simply discussing the operating model being QRM, and only the technology simply reinforces the methodology. So that's why I love the quote on this slide. It's really the operation became more quieter, clearer, more manageable. It's not about being faster, it's about being more in control. And I still said it, it's all about flow. Now, what can you do as of next week Monday? First of all, start mapping one product family. Start mapping the lead time for one order from beginning till the end and count the calendar days. Count the actual hours of work. And if for you the difference is not surprising, maybe for the management it is, but you will immediately discover where the weighting in your processes lives. Second, count the number of orders on the shop floor. That's your whip, and ask yourself, what would happen if we would release work more selectively? Your whip is the most powerful lever. Use it. And third, look at how orders are being released. What triggers a release? Is it still the ERP date? Is it sales who's shouting very loud? Or is it actually you being ready for it and having the capacity to deal with it? These are all important decisions that have a huge impact on your lead time. And yet, a lot of companies all grasp these ideas. That's why we do these webinars. But many still struggle to sustain them. They all understand theory, and the problem is therefore not on knowledge, it's a reinforcement. So let's have a quick look at the contradictions. If we say we want to limit the WIP, then sales pressures us to release more work. If we want dynamic priorities, the ERP schedule wins in every discussion. Faster discussions, then you have excellent tribal knowledge that fill the visibility gap. The reality is very simple. Digital or the system reinforces the opposite behavior of QRM. So you need to change the system, make sure you select the right digital platform so you don't fall back in your old habits and you only think about one thing, lead time. So what should the digital system actually do? We've heard it. First of all, we need to control what enters the floor. Secondly, make the WIP visible across a complete company, from sales to logistics, and give operations clarity, not different versions on paper. Because that will allow you to deal with bottlenecks before they escalated in production. And all that doing digital results in a feedback loop and having the digital information to make sure that you can continuously improve and optimize your lead time. And let's be honest, ERP isn't the solution. An ERP is excellent at planning, managing master data, dealing with activity-based costing. But if we look within engineering or within production, there the reality changes every day. Materials arrive too late, people are absent, priorities shift, dependencies emerge. That's the messy middle. And for the messy middle, you need an MES solution, which will not replace the ERP. On the opposite, it will complement it. ERP creates a plan, the MES executes the plan. And that's exactly how CGK uses 24 Flow. They have the order pool management to control what enters the floor. They steer on capacity, they make their WIP visible, and they bring the responsibilities as low as possible to the shop floor. So these are all aspects that we were very happy to enable CGK with, but in the end, as they taught me, a fool with a tool is still a fool. So all kudos to how they embraced QRM and made it a reality to scale their growth. And one last final thought. CGK maybe built a new factory, but they didn't rebuild it. They didn't replace everything. They didn't have a huge transformation program. They had a clear direction and they took one decision at a time. So it's an evolution and not a revolution. So start by measuring your waiting time, challenge the release decisions, and make the flow visible. And then you'll improve from there. Once more, thank you for joining us today. Sadly enough, we ran out of time for questions, but if there would be any question, we will share the presentation and the recording, so do not hesitate to reach out. And other than that, I can only wish you a great day with a lot of flow in engineering and production. Thank you for attending today.
Thanks.